Today you join me on a typically beautiful British day, which I'm sure will put this luxury German SUV through its paces. This is a Mercedes GLE53 Coupe, and it's got some letters on the back that spell out AMG. There's no big hand-built V8 in this one though, so does it really deserve that badge? Let's have a look, shall we? My name's Tom, and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Before we start, please like, subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like us to keep making this content. Now, this might not be the big old V8 we're used to, but this GLE has some pretty neat tricks up its sleeve to make more power. Of course, there's your standard engine. This is Mercedes' new inline 6, and in this GLE it produces 429 horsepower and a pretty respectable 520 Nm of torque. But that's not all, as this Mercedes uses the also very new EQ boost system, which adds a further 21 bhp, which doesn't really sound like much, but it's the 250 Nm of torque that really matters. This means this GLE should still have that low-down grunt that we're used to with AMGs. But let's see how she moves on the 30 to 70 sprint. Well, despite weighing more than a Range Rover, this GLE still managed a pretty respectable time of 4.59 seconds. To put that in perspective, that's faster than a Mark III Ford Focus RS, and not far off the latest hot hatches. You might think that's not really that impressive, but let's take a look inside, and I think you might change your mind. The technology in this car really does set the bar high. There's the usual 360 camera, heated and cooled seats, and digital displays. But there's even more. The steering wheel has 2 displays either side of the lower spoke, and that allows you to control your exhaust and drive modes. There's then the most customizable heads-up display I have ever seen. You can show anything from your G meter to where the car is sending power. Move to the back and there's plenty of legroom and headroom despite the sloping roofline. Then there's of course your own climate control and even some USB-C ports for charging. Moving to the boot, you'll find a cavernous 655 litres of space, and that's with the seats up. Put the seats down and you have enough room to carry a small building. Anyway, enough chit chat, let's drive this thing, shall we? God, this car really does feel like a spaceship. Initial impressions of this GLE then, so going over these speed bumps here, yeah, it feels very comfortable. It's got a really complex suspension system. It's going to be interesting to see how it handles later, because theoretically there shouldn't be any body roll. Yeah, even going over these bigger speed bumps here, it feels like, well, any normal comfortable Mercedes. Steering is nice and light. It's got that typical, like, you know where the front wheels are with this car, but it's light at the same time. The only big difference you notice around town is just that grumble from that inline 6 engine. It does sound very nice. I don't know if even in comfort it's pumping sound into the cabin. It certainly feels like it, but so far it's really relaxing, even though this is supposed to be a, I guess, half AMG. It's not the full fat 4 litre V8. Another big thing, obviously it's got that 48 volt system, so the way the stop start works is very different to a car without this mild hybrid system. And Mercedes have done a magical job. It basically just feels like an electric car. So even when the engine's off, you put your foot on the accelerator and the car starts moving forward whilst the engine is starting. It's quite a weird experience at first, but it just means the whole driving experience is really smooth. And then of course this car has Hey Mercedes, which interrupts you every 2 seconds. Right, let's see how the parking is. Got a 360 camera on this car, and you've got lines telling you where you're going to go. And it just makes it really easy to park a big car like this. And you do need the cameras because this is a coupe after all. if you can call it that. And there's just no view out the rear window. It's almost like driving a supercar. Getting into a space, if you are good at parking, unlike me, you would be able to get into the space in one go. So with all the camera systems, it makes it pretty easy. Right, at this junction, I just want to show you how good this EQ boost system is. So you come to a complete stop, you've got hill hold assist on, so my feet aren't touching the pedals at all, and I just give it half throttle, and it's just going straight away. There is no lag whatsoever, and there's no jerkiness to it as well. With a lot of start-stop systems, they start the engine and then suddenly you get this big whack of power that spins the wheels. And it just means you can drive semi-efficiently and still get into those little gaps in traffic. It's all those little things that just add up to a really nice driving experience. Right, let's reset the trip and see what a AMG GLE53 can get on the motorway. Not expecting amazing figures, but it should be good enough that I don't have to stop at the petrol station every 10 minutes. One thing you might have seen already is this heads-up display, and we'll play around with it on the motorway, but there are so many different configurations you can have. And it really is a party piece. I mean, A, it's really cool to look at, and B, it's actually useful on a day-to-day basis. At first, you kind of find it obstructing the view a little bit, but once you're used to it, I mean, you wouldn't want to live without it. Of course, before we get on the motorway, we're going to do the obligatory handling test. So I can use the rotary dial on the steering wheel, put us in Sports Plus, change gears myself. Let's see if this feels like a proper AMG. Haven't found the traction button yet, we'll find that later. Sounds quite good. Whoa, a bit of understeer there. It is wet today though. There is a good bit of sound. So steering gets heavier, throttle to pedal is more responsive, but I think you will have to turn the traction off to get a bit more power to the rear. Even though it's an SUV, I would like it to have a bit of AMG oversteer. For now, we're going to talk about some other features of the car and put her back in comfort. On a very wet motorway then, what's this car like? Well, this is where the GLE is kind of going to spend most of its time. So you want it to be as comfortable as a normal GLE. And I have to say, it certainly is. There is absolutely zero road noise in this car, about the same as the Range Rover Sport we reviewed last week. And wind noise, because you've kind of got this sleekish coupe body shape, is pretty much non-existent. Then of course, this car has a whole host of driver assistance features. So you've got adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, blind spot monitor, and it just takes all the stress out of doing a motorway journey. The only downside to some of these systems is that they can be a little bit jerky. And the thing is, on the motorway, obviously if you're in the passing lane, you follow people closer than you should most of the time. And because these systems are set up for safety, even at the closest setting, it won't get that close to the rear bumper. Although I guess that's kind of not really a downside, is it? But anyway, visibility, changing lanes is very easy. You've got a blind spot monitor, so you don't really have to check your blind spot anyway. Plus you've got that curved bit of glass as well. And when you do change lanes, the car will find the lane very quickly. So you find the car does most of the driving for you on the motorway anyway. And the next thing that isn't usually a major factor on the motorway, but in this car it certainly is the suspension. I don't know how they've done it, but the air suspension system in this car makes it feel like you're almost flying over the road. You see a bump, you hit it, and nothing happens. You don't feel it whatsoever. It's an absolutely amazing system. I just hope it's as sporty as they say it is. Then the next important thing is, of course, seat comfort. And yeah, these seats are pretty comfortable. Driving position is good. I can get nice and low in the cabin, even for an SUV. And it just means you feel like you're sitting in the car rather than on it. And of course, there's plenty of adjustment as well. And as well as the adjustment, of course, you've got the heated function and the cooled function. And the cooled seats in this car are really good. Feels like there's actually a fridge behind you. It's quite amazing, really. And another thing that you can't actually do in many other cars is you can change not only the position of the left seat, but you can actually turn on their heated and cooled seat. Pretty neat trick. Now then, the heads-up display. So when I first got in this car, I was trying to change the settings and I had literally no idea what I was doing. It does take a while to get used to the multi-control steering wheel, but once you get used to it, it's actually really intuitive. So once you've got into the settings of the heads-up display, you click the settings part, then you can adjust the height, the brightness, all that kind of stuff. And then you can change what it actually displays itself. So of course you've got the speed limit, then you've got your, I believe that's your pitch, something like that. Then you've got something to do with the tyres. I think it's where the power's going. As you can see, it's saying the power is going to the rear wheels only at the minute. That's that 4MATIC Plus system doing its job. Then you've got the following distance to the car in front. So I can change that on the steering wheel. You can see it moves around. Then there's just empty. I don't know what that is yet. Then you've got multiple settings for your rev counter. So here, this is like the most information you can get on the screen. So if I had a destination put in the sat-nav, that would be coming up as well. But I've got a G meter on the left. I've got my speed, my cruise control data, and my driver assistance data as well. It's crazy the amount of information you can have. I'm not entirely sure if you can see all that, but hopefully you can. But the amount of information that is there is just absolutely mental. But this is my favourite setting, a little bit of driver assistance data, and then the cool little AMG rev package thing. Looks nice. Okay, cost options. If I only had 3 specs that I could choose, what would they be? Well, if this was a complete base model GLE53, unlike this one, this is a Premium Plus, so it's got basically everything on it. First thing I'd get is that Burmester sound system. Good sound systems are hard to come by these days, actually. A lot of standard sound systems, even in bigger SUVs, are not really that good. But the Burmester sound system in this is awesome. It really fills the whole car with sound. You get really good bass, good mids, and good highs. And it doesn't really leave anything to be desired. It does everything I want it to do. Next thing would be that panoramic roof. If you get the coupe, there is not a lot of light in the back. Even though there's plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom, the windows are still quite small, so you kind of feel like you're cocooned in. And having this big glass roof just really helps let a lot more light in so the passengers don't get ill in the back. Then the last thing, you might be surprised at it, is actually these cup holders. They cool and heat your drink, but not only that, they do it properly. When this technology first came out, they were just a gimmick, really. You know, they got mildly cold and they would get lukewarm. Whereas this system will actually get so cold you can freeze your drink in it. And if you put it on the hot setting, it'll keep a cup of coffee at like over 50 degrees. And it's one of those features that I think is now genuinely worth having. But of course, if you live in a warmer climate, I think the other thing that you should go for are the cooled seats. In the UK, it's not that necessary, but it is kind of a nice to have. Right, let's do a couple more miles on the motorway to see what MPG figure we get. Right, that's our motorway stint over then, and we only managed 25.7 miles per gallon. I think because it's raining, it's affected that figure a little bit, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a big, heavy SUV, and it's just filled with lots of tech, which just adds to all that weight. So, if you want to save the planet, probably not the SUV for you. But I can't deny this engine is very nice to use. Let's see what it can do on a B road. Before we get on a B road, we've got to see if this car can go sideways. Come on. Oh, it doesn't like it. Oh, it sort of does. It's wet, we're in the sportiest mode, and yes, a GLE53 will go sideways. It doesn't really like it though, I have to admit. You have to give it loads of throttle. But once you are in the sportiest mode, it really does handle well. Back to the old B-Rose. We're in the sportiest settings still. When you've got it in manual, it comes up with these shift lights. Look pretty cool. It is wet today, so I do have to be a little bit careful. But this 4MATIC Plus system should help me out nicely. It's as fast as a hot hatch and as big as a yacht. Way! This 4MATIC Plus system does an amazing job. But that suspension gives you so much confidence, and this car goes pretty sideways. Quite amazing for a big SUV like this to just be so nimble in the corners. And the sound, although a lot of it is pumped in, it is good. Not really missing the V8 yet. Around some tighter corners, brakes are nice and sharp. You really get that rear wheel drive feel. My God, it is wet today. All the controls are talking to you though. Steering could be a little bit better, but for an SUV it is pretty good. Second gear around this corner. Oh, you really feel the rear wheels doing the driving. For a big SUV, this is a serious B-road car. I would genuinely take this out on a weekend to have some fun with it. It is that good. You get that lovely snap and crackle on the gear shift as well. Anything I'm missing, and that's kind of because I'm childish, is a couple of pops and bangs. But other than that, this is the full package, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that was certainly an experience. Somehow Mercedes have managed to make a practical, heavy, luxurious SUV handle almost exactly like a sports car. This thing seems to defy the laws of physics with the way it handles, and it's almost left me speechless. The price tag of over £80,000 might seem high, but this car is like having your cake and eating it. It rides like a limo, yet can go round corners like a whippet on crack. I am genuinely awestruck on how the engineers at Stuttgart were able to get this SUV to do what it does. And as much as I hate to admit it, I would actually have one. Genuine fun and unbelievable comfort. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, give us a like and why not subscribe, because not only can you see more videos like this, you can also see everything we have for sale. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.